Good morning, everyone. Today I'm excited to explore with my esteemed colleagues a topic that is rapidly reshaping the landscape of higher education: the transformative power of artificial intelligence, or as abbreviated, AI. We're not just talking about smarter tools or faster processes, we're witnessing a fundamental shift in how we teach, how students learn, and how institutions operate. Let's begin by acknowledging a simple fact. The integration of AI in higher education is no longer optional, it's becoming essential. AI is revitalizing teaching methods, strengthening student engagement, and allowing us to offer truly personalized learning experiences. But with these exciting changes also come real challenges that we, as educators and academic leaders, need to navigate together. So, how exactly is AI changing the way we teach? One of the key transformations is in how we design and deliver education. AI technologies, particularly machine learning and data analytics, have evolved to help us better understand how students learn. For instance, some researchers showed that AI can analyze student learning patterns and flag potential challenges early on. This gives us a chance to adjust our teaching strategies, keep curriculum relevant, and respond more dynamically to student needs. In other words, AI supports responsive education, where the learning environment doesn't remain static but evolves alongside our students. Now let's talk about personalization, one of the most talked about benefits of AI in education. Thanks to intelligent systems, we can now tailor content based on students' pace, interests, and learning styles. As some academic researchers pointed out, AI enables institutions to craft personalized learning pathways, and that's a big deal. Because when students feel that their learning experience is aligned with their own goals and preferences, they're more motivated, more engaged, and more likely to succeed. In fact, AI doesn't just adapt once, it adapts continuously, analyzing real-time data to fine-tune the learning environment on the fly. An academic article published in 2020 highlights this as a key factor behind higher student satisfaction and improved retention rates. Let's not forget engagement. AI-powered tools are helping us create more interactive and immersive learning experiences. For example, platforms that simulate real-world scenarios, virtual labs, AI-driven role-playing exercises, allow students to apply their theoretical knowledge in practical settings. This shift from passive to active learning is critical. Some scientific approaches emphasize that such tools not only improve learning outcomes but also enhance critical thinking skills. Now, all of this sounds promising, and it is. But there are also hurdles we need to overcome. Adopting AI requires a mindset shift among educators. As a recent academic work mentions, many faculty members may feel overwhelmed by the pace of technological change. They might lack the training or confidence to implement AI tools effectively in the classroom. That's why professional development and ongoing support are not just helpful, they're essential. We need to empower educators just as much as we empower students. And beyond the classroom, AI has the potential to streamline institutional operations. Think about the time spent on administrative tasks like scheduling, registration, and managing student services. According to some forecasts based on academic researches, AI can take over many of these functions, freeing up educators and administrators to focus on more strategic and impactful work, such as mentoring, curriculum development, and supporting student well-being. What is more, the research keeps backing up these benefits. For example, a systematic scientific review found that AI significantly improves the quality of online education, especially in areas like student feedback and performance assessment. On top of that, it is also obvious that the growing use of adaptive learning technologies, which automatically adjust content based on each student's performance, is more common nowadays, ensuring that no one gets left behind. Looking ahead, the future is bright. Many academics suggest that as institutions continue experimenting with AI, we'll see even more innovative breakthroughs, not just in how we teach, but in how we design policies, support inclusion, and align education with the rapidly changing demands of the labor market. So where does this leave us? To summarize, AI is revolutionizing higher education. It's enhancing how we teach, how students engage, and how we personalize learning at scale. The synergy between AI and academic practices has the potential to create smarter, more effective, and more human-centered education systems. But let's not lose sight of the human element. Educators need support. Students need guidance, and institutions need frameworks that ensure ethical, equitable, and sustainable use of AI. If we get this right, we're not just improving education, we're reimagining it. We're laying the groundwork for a future where learning is more inclusive, more adaptive, and more impactful than ever before. Now let's listen to our colleagues about their perspectives for the teaching with artificial intelligence in higher education. Dr. Sabina will talk about what AI can do in teaching practical capabilities. Then Dr. Sophia will focus on the teaching practice in action with real examples. Next will be Dr. Camelia, who will explain the new dynamics of the reshaping of the assessments in the age of AI. And finally, Dr. Okan will talk about how faculty and institutional readiness must be restructured in the new ecosystem reshaped by AI. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor, for this nice and powerful introduction. That was an inspiring opening to the broader context we're operating in. Now, I'd like to take us into the heart of what's possible today, specifically what AI can actually do in higher education teaching right now. To be clear, we're not talking about some distant hypothetical future. We're talking about tools and practices that are already in use, some of them widespread, others still emerging, but all highly relevant. At its core, the role of AI in teaching can be understood across three overlapping domains: automation, personalization, and creation. Let's begin with automation, which is perhaps the most familiar. AI tools are helping us streamline tasks that used to be time-consuming and repetitive. For example, grading multiple-choice quizzes, tracking student attendance, or responding to frequently asked questions about assignments or deadlines. Tools like Gradescope or Newton use machine learning to automatically grade student work, including even some open-ended responses. That's especially valuable in large enrollment courses, where giving meaningful, consistent feedback at scale can be nearly impossible without support. But AI's usefulness in automation goes beyond grading. Some universities are already using AI-powered chatbots to manage administrative communication. For example, an AI assistant might answer student emails, provide course registration support, or alert instructors when a student's behavior suggests they're struggling. In that way, AI becomes an early intervention mechanism, helping us act proactively rather than reactively. Just as a note, at BSBI we are already working on integrating an AI assistant to our metaverse campus. Now let's move on to personalization, which I think is one of the most transformative potentials of AI in education. Traditional classroom teaching, particularly in lecture formats, has always been challenged by the need to cater to a diverse range of learners. With AI, we can begin to offer something closer to truly differentiated instruction. Platforms like Sentry Tech and Squirrel AI use adaptive learning algorithms to adjust content in real time based on each learner's performance and progress. A student who's excelling might be directed to more advanced tasks, while another who is struggling receives reinforcement on foundational concepts. And this isn't only about academic ability. AI can even adjust pacing, language level, and delivery format, for instance, offering visual versus verbal explanations based on individual learning preferences. Importantly, this approach supports equity. Students with learning disabilities, language differences, or non-traditional backgrounds can benefit from customization that may not be feasible for a human teacher managing a large cohort. With the right tools, we can create more inclusive learning environments, ones that don't just acknowledge diversity, but actively adapt to it. The third domain is creation, and this is where we're seeing the most rapid evolution. Generative AI, particularly large language models like GPT-4, have opened up completely new possibilities for teaching content development. Think of AI as a creative collaborator. Need a set of discussion prompts tailored to a controversial issue? AI can draft them. Do you want alternative case studies for business ethics, each set in a different cultural or political context? You can generate those too. Let me now give you a concrete example. In a marketing course, a colleague of mine asked AI to generate 4 mock press releases for a fictional product. Each version adopted a different rhetorical strategy, one focused on social proof, another on urgency, another on storytelling, and one on technical credibility. Students then analyzed the effectiveness of each approach and created their own hybrid version, reflecting on audience targeting, emotional appeal, and ethical boundaries in marketing communication. AI didn't replace creativity, it stimulated it. Now, while the capabilities are impressive, there's a crucial caveat. AI is only as effective as the pedagogy behind it. Dropping AI into a poorly designed assignment won't magically improve learning outcomes. But when it's embedded within clear learning objectives, critical engagement, and structured reflection, it can deepen and enrich the educational experience. One of the best ways I've seen this done is through co-authoring tasks. For instance, students in an environmental science course were asked to use GPT-4 to generate a draft policy memo. But the assignment didn't end there. They had to annotate the memo, critique its assumptions, rewrite problematic sections, and reflect on the limitations of AI's environmental reasoning. The AI output was merely the starting point for a much deeper intellectual process. Another strength of AI is its ability to expose students to multiple perspectives quickly. For instance, asking an AI model to simulate different stakeholder responses, say a government official, an environmental activist, and a local business owner, can help students practice empathy, negotiation, and complex systems thinking. Again, it's not about outsourcing cognition, it's about expanding the cognitive terrain. Of course, there are legitimate concerns. AI can hallucinate false facts, reinforce bias, or produce writing that seems persuasive but lacks depth. That's why we must teach our students not just how to use AI, but how to question it, just as we train them to critique journal articles or detect unreliable sources. Some recent academic works remind us once again that AI in education should amplify what great teachers already do. I would add, it should also challenge us to rethink why we do what we do. If a chatbot can answer a surface-level comprehension question, maybe we should be asking better questions. If an algorithm can write a summary, maybe our assignment should focus on synthesis, interpretation, or application. So my message today is this: AI is here and it's powerful. But it's not a silver bullet and it's not a threat unless we ignore it or adopt it blindly. What it needs is intentionality, pedagogical thinking, and critical collaboration. Try it, reflect on it, discuss it with your students. Ask them to tell you what they've discovered, good, bad, and surprising. That's how we learn together. Thank you for listening. Now my colleague Dr. Sophia will talk about the teaching practice of AI in action.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sabina. Your approach to AI in education is a clear and comprehensive breakdown of what AI can do from a capabilities perspective. Now, I'd like to bring it into focus by showing you what AI looks like in action in real teaching environments across disciplines and in both expected and surprising ways. We've heard a lot about AI's theoretical possibilities, but how are educators actually using it in their classrooms today? And just as importantly, what are students doing with it when given the space to experiment? Let's start with some concrete examples. At an higher education institution in US, in one of their introductory psychology courses, the university has integrated an AI-powered teaching assistant named Alex. Alex answers students' questions 24/7, providing clarification on course content, links to recommended readings, and reminders about upcoming assignments. But more than that, it learns from students' questions. If 40% of the class is struggling with cognitive development theories, Alex flags that for the professor, who can then respond in real time with a targeted review session or supplemental material. The result? A more responsive and adaptive learning experience for everyone involved. Another concrete example is from Scotland. In this case, literature and humanities faculty are experimenting with AI to support formative feedback. Students submit a draft essay and receive AI-generated comments on structure, clarity, tone, and cohesion before the human marker ever sees it. Students then revise their work, reflecting on the AI suggestions. The outcome isn't just a cleaner draft. It's improved self-awareness and a deeper understanding of academic writing as a process. And what's equally important, the final grade and in-depth feedback still come from the professor. The AI scaffolds learning, but the educator still sets the intellectual tone. At another institution in Europe, they have been piloting something a little different. In the political science department, they asked students to use an AI model to help generate research questions from a given dataset on global economic inequality. The AI suggested everything from what are the effects of colonial legacy on GDP distribution, to how do gender-based income disparities vary by region. Students then had to assess which questions were viable, critique the assumptions behind each, and justify their final choice. What we saw was a marked improvement in the quality of student inquiry. The AI didn't give them the answers, it provoked better questions. This kind of co-thinking with AI shifts the role of the tool. It's no longer about producing polished output. It's about shaping curiosity and guiding intellectual engagement. And that's a major leap forward in how we approach creativity and critical thinking in higher education. Another inspiring case comes from the arts. In a digital design course, students were invited to explore generative image models to prototype early visual ideas. The prompt? Design a public installation that addresses a social justice issue. AI was used to quickly generate mood boards, architectural forms, and lighting variations. Students then analyzed the results through a critical lens. What aesthetics were emerging? What biases were embedded in the AI's cultural assumptions? How could they redesign these outputs to reflect authentic community voices? This wasn't a shortcut to creativity. It was an invitation to critique and reimagine the act of creation itself. The most valuable learning didn't come from what the AI produced. It came from how students reacted to it. Of course, there are challenges. Some students initially over-relied on AI tools, treating them as magic boxes that dispense knowledge. Others were unsure how to evaluate the reliability or bias in AI-generated information. That's why scaffolding is essential. We must teach students how to use AI critically, not just functionally. So the revised pedagogy is suggested to implement a few principles that have proven really effective. The first one is to make AI visible. Don't treat it as a hidden tool. If students are using it, talk about it. Ask them what prompts they tried, what worked, what didn't, and what they'd do differently next time. The second one is frame the AI as a collaborator, not a source. When students use AI to help draft ideas or summaries, they're required to document what came from them and what came from the tool. Then they write a short reflection on how they improved or rejected the AI suggestions. And the last one is to center the process over the product. Whether it's a group presentation, a prototype, or a research paper, we assess the journey just as much as the outcome. That includes peer review, draft iterations, and interaction logs with AI tools when applicable. We've also seen new energy in classroom discussions. In one ethics course, students used AI to simulate opposing philosophical positions, say a Kantian versus a utilitarian perspective on bioengineering. They debated not just the content of these arguments, but how convincingly the AI captured the spirit of each school of thought. This led to richer, more nuanced conversations, and interestingly, greater student ownership of their learning. But, let me be honest, none of this works without intentionality. You can't just add AI to a course and expect it to flourish. You need design, dialogue, and debriefing. As some academics argue, technology does not determine pedagogy. Pedagogy determines how technology is used. The question we must ask is not, can AI do this? But it must be, does using AI here deepen student learning, agency, and critical engagement? In the best examples I've seen, AI is not treated as a replacement or even a solution. It's treated as a provocation to rethink what learning means, what knowledge looks like, and how we help students build the confidence and skills to thrive in a world that will be increasingly shaped by these technologies. So if you're wondering whether AI has a place in your classroom, I'd say start small. Pick one lesson, co-design it with your students. Use AI to challenge assumptions or prototype new ideas. Then reflect together. Teaching with AI isn't just about new tools. It's about new relationships with technology, with knowledge, and with our students. Thank you very much for listening to me. Now we are going to listen to Dr. Camelia about rethinking the assessment in the age of AI.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sophia. What a rich set of examples, each reminding us that when implemented intentionally, AI can deepen rather than dilute learning. But now we come to a part of the conversation that's generating both concern and confusion in higher education. Assessment. We all know assessment is the engine of formal education. It drives learning behavior, signals achievement, and validates qualifications. But what happens when a student can produce a grammatically correct, well-organized essay using ChatGPT in under 60 seconds? What does that mean for essays as a form of assessment? For take-home assignments? For online exams? I want to suggest that this is not a crisis. It's an opportunity. In fact, AI might just be the push we needed to finally rethink how and why we assess in the first place. Let's start by examining the core tension. Traditional assessments tend to focus on product, the finished report, the polished essay, the final presentation. But generative AI tools can now mimic or even outperform average human outputs for many of these tasks. So what do? We shift the spotlight from product to process, from answers to thinking, from isolated performance to ongoing engagement. One model gaining traction is process-based assessment. For example, in a third-year economics course at a university in Europe, it was recently piloted an assignment where students were asked to use an AI tool to generate an initial policy brief on housing inequality. But that was just the beginning. They then annotated the draft, critically evaluating what the AI got right, what was biased, and where important arguments were missing. Then, in a second phase, they rewrote the brief themselves. Their mark was based on the evolution of their work, not just the final product. Students reported feeling more confident, more involved, and, most interestingly, more ownership over their final submission. The AI had helped them see what not to do. Some higher education institutions experiment also multimodal assessment. This goes beyond written assignments and allows students to express their learning through oral presentations, reflective journals, learning portfolios, or creative projects. One media studies class had students generate podcast scripts with the help of AI and then critique the AI's sense of tone, perspective, and fact-checking. They followed this up by recording their own commentary on how they revised the content. It was metacognition in action. Another trend we're seeing is real-time interactive assessment, especially in courses where critical thinking or ethical reasoning is central. For instance, in a law course on intellectual property, instead of a standard written exam, students participated in a simulated debate where they had to respond in real time to AI-generated legal cases. These scenarios evolve dynamically based on the student's argument, forcing them to apply concepts rather than just repeat them. And yes, let's talk about academic integrity because this is where much of the anxiety around AI lies. There's been an understandable temptation to fall back on AI detection tools, to scan student work for signs of machine authorship. But here's the problem: they're not reliable. Some recent studies have found high rates of false positives, especially for students who write in non-native English or who use grammatically simple language. We risk penalizing the very students we aim to support. So instead of catching AI use, we should focus on cultivating responsible AI engagement. Here's one approach we're using. Students are allowed to use AI tools, but they must submit a use disclosure form along with their assignment. They explain which tools they used, what they asked, what outputs they received, and how they edited them. They're not graded down for using AI, they're graded up for reflecting on how they used it. This makes space for transparency and learning rather than punishment and fear. We also need to rethink our rubrics. What are we really measuring? Is it memorization? Grammar? Structure? Or is it creativity, reasoning, and ethical judgment? Rubrics should reward student autonomy, iterative thinking, and synthesis. AI can generate content, but it can't reflect on values, connect ideas meaningfully, or share a personal journey. Those are uniquely human skills, and they're exactly what we should be assessing. Finally, we need to bring students into this conversation. Ask them how they use AI. Let them co-design assessment formats. You might be surprised, they often have clearer ideas about what's authentic and fair than we do. And when students feel trusted and involved, they are far more likely to engage honestly and thoughtfully. In conclusion, let me offer this. AI is not the end of assessment, but it may be the end of lazy assessment, assignments that rely on rote tasks, predictable outputs, or formulaic structures. What we need now are assessments that invite thinking, reflection, argument, creativity, and voice. So let's stop asking, how do we stop students from using AI? And start asking, how do we design assessments that make meaningful learning visible, with or without AI? That's the real opportunity in front of us. Thank you for listening to me. Now we are going to listen to Dr. Okan from BSBI Hamburg about faculty and institutional readiness.
Thank you, dear Dr. Camelia. That was a timely and thoughtful reflection on the future of assessment in the AI era. I'd like to shift the focus from pedagogy in the classroom to the broader institutional structures that either enable or hinder meaningful innovation with AI in higher education. First, let's clarify this. AI is not just a teaching tool, it's a systemic force. And the way institutions respond to it will determine whether it becomes a force for positive transformation or a source of fragmentation and inequality. Let's start with faculty. Many of us are already encountering AI in our daily work, whether it's through students submitting AI-assisted assignments or encountering AI-based features in some LMS platforms. But here's the reality. While some faculty are experimenting enthusiastically, others feel overwhelmed or uncertain. For some, there's excitement. For others, there's anxiety or even resistance. This mix of emotions is completely natural, and we must respond with support, not pressure. At many universities, many faculty surveys were conducted last year, and what we hear from most of the surveys loud and clear is this. We're not opposed to AI. We just don't know where to start. In response, most of the times, three-part support model is established. The first one is entry-level training for AI-curious educators, focusing on basic tools and ethical concerns. The second one is mid-level learning labs, where faculty co-create AI-supported lesson plans across disciplines. The third one is advanced innovation fellowships, which give faculty time and funding to explore AI-based research and teaching applications. What's critical is that none of this is mandatory. I do firmly believe that what is normal is to treat faculty members as co-designers, not adopters of top-down tech rollouts. It is obvious that when educators feel respected and empowered, they become much more willing to engage, experiment, and share. At BSBI, for example, we organize regular events with the AI topic, sometimes formal, sometimes informal drop-in sessions where faculty share their thoughts. This has built a genuine sense of community around AI, replacing fear with curiosity. But faculty development alone is not enough. We also need clear, adaptable policies. Not static rules written in isolation, but living frameworks that can evolve with the pace of technology. These should cover academic integrity, data privacy, AI usage disclosure, and expectations for both students and staff. And here's the key: these policies must be co-created with students, faculty, administrators, and even IT and legal experts. Some universities in Europe, for instance, brought together working groups from all areas of the university to draft a campus-wide AI policy. That policy is revisited every semester. It's not just a document, it's a dialogue. A successful institutional response to AI also depends on governance. That means building dedicated teams or task forces to lead strategic planning, coordinate implementation, and provide oversight. These groups should be cross-functional. Teaching and learning experts, student representatives, accessibility specialists, librarians, technologists, data scientists, and crucially, faculty from the ground. Because here's the truth: AI doesn't just affect one department or discipline. It reshapes curriculum design, assessment methods, content delivery, student support, and even how we define academic labor. It's too complex and too consequential to be managed in an isolated environment. Let's talk now about infrastructure. Many institutions underestimate the technical lift required to support AI in education. Do we have secure systems for data handling? Can our LMS support adaptive learning paths? Do we have tools that comply with accessibility laws and privacy protections? But beyond tools and licenses, we also need to address access. Are all students, regardless of their background, device quality, or connectivity, able to meaningfully engage with AI tools? If we're assigning work that involves generative AI, are we providing equitable access? At some institution, partnerships have already been established with library services to create AI access hubs, dedicated spaces where students can use tools like ChatGPT with guidance from trained staff. These hubs are especially important for first-generation students and others unfamiliar with academic technology. Another exciting initiative might be Student AI Advisory Board. This is a suggestion for a rotating group of undergraduates and postgraduates from across disciplines who consult with leadership on emerging tools, flag risks, and co-design usage guidelines. Their perspectives have been invaluable. They're not just users, they're stakeholders. And their insights often bridge the gap between tech hype and lived experience. Now, I'd like to briefly address the issue of ethical leadership. Higher education has a unique opportunity, not just to react to AI, but to help shape its societal trajectory. We can model responsible use, invest in open source alternatives, and engage in public discourse about the role of technology in democracy, equity, and the future of work. That's why it's so important that institutions don't see AI as a tech issue. It's a people issue, a values issue, a leadership issue. So to wrap up, institutional readiness isn't just about technology. It's about mindset, culture, and shared commitment. It's about creating ecosystems where educators feel safe to explore, where students feel included and informed, and where decisions are grounded in values as well as evidence. As AI continues to evolve, we must evolve with it, but on our terms, as collaborators, as thinkers, as educators committed to equity, excellence, and the transformative power of learning. Thank you very much for listening. Now we are going to listen to Professor Kouveliotis for the final part of our video lesson.
Thank you very much, dear colleagues, for your wonderful contributions. What a strong and thoughtful overview of what institutional readiness truly means. As we come to the final section of this webinar, I'd like to take a moment to pull together the threads we've explored so far, and then push our thinking a bit further forward. We've heard today about the power of AI to transform teaching practice. We've seen examples of how it can support, inspire, and even challenge students in exciting new ways. We've discussed how assessment is evolving and how our institutions must evolve too. And through all of this, one theme has echoed again and again. The future of teaching with AI is not inevitable. It is a choice. The question is not whether AI will change higher education, it already is. The real question is who gets to shape those changes, with what values, and toward what goals. So where do we go from here? Let's begin with clarity of purpose. At the heart of every decision we make about AI in education, we must return to a fundamental question. What is education for? Is it about efficiency, credentialing, information delivery, or is it about transformation? Empowerment? The development of critical, creative, compassionate citizens? If we believe in the latter, and I hope we all do, then our use of AI must reflect those values. It's not enough for AI to help us grade faster or teach more students. We must use it to help students think more deeply, collaborate more meaningfully, and grow more fully into their potential. Next, we need critical optimism. That means not just hoping that AI will improve education, but actively working to make it so. It means welcoming new tools, but also scrutinizing them, celebrating innovation, but also challenging assumptions, and above all, ensuring that our excitement about AI never outpaces our responsibility to use it ethically and equitably. This is where collaboration becomes essential. None of us can navigate this terrain alone. We need to break down silos between departments, between disciplines, between roles. Faculty need to be in conversation with instructional designers. Students need to be part of policy making. Administrators need to hear from frontline educators. We need robust, cross-functional teams working together, not just to implement AI, but to shape its purpose in our institutions. And beyond our campuses, we must build bridges across the sector. Share what works. Be transparent about what doesn't. Develop communities of practice. Contribute to open educational resources. Join national and international coalitions that are working on frameworks for responsible AI use in education. Because the truth is, higher education has a unique responsibility and a unique opportunity to lead in this space. We are not just preparing students to use AI. We are preparing them to shape it, to question it, to improve it, to ensure that the technologies of the future are grounded in human dignity. Now, let me offer a few practical calls to action as we move forward. First, start with curiosity. Try something small. Maybe it's one AI-assisted prompt in your next lesson. Maybe it's inviting your students to explore what AI gets wrong about your field. Maybe it's experimenting with feedback loops that integrate AI-generated suggestions. You don't need to become an AI expert overnight, but you do need to stay engaged. Second, prioritize transparency. Talk to your students about AI. Be honest about what you're learning. Invite them into the conversation. Let them help co-create the norms for how AI should be used in your course. This fosters trust, shared ownership, and accountability. Third, embrace experimentation, but couple it with reflection. Not everything will work. That's okay. What matters is that we learn, adapt, and keep asking. What kind of learning experience am I trying to create? And how can AI help or hinder that? Fourth, advocate for infrastructure and support. Faculty need time, tools, and training. Students need equitable access. Institutions need governance structures and living policies. None of this happens by accident. It requires leadership and collective effort. And finally, let's hold on to our most human strengths: empathy, critical thinking, ethical judgment, and imagination. These are the qualities that will always define great teaching and meaningful learning, regardless of how powerful our technologies become. Neil Selwyn, whose work many of you know, put it beautifully when he said, "The most important question is not what AI can do, but what kind of education we want." So let's stay grounded in that question. Let's lead with vision. Let's design the future of higher education not as passive adopters of technology, but as architects of new, inclusive, and transformative learning experiences. Let's be critical, and above all, let's be human. Thank you all, and let's keep this important conversation going long after today,